Have you ever stood up for someone when everyone else turned away, not knowing it would change your life forever? In a misty coastal town in Oregon, where the ocean whispered secrets and the rain never seemed to stop, a single moment of courage sparked a story that no one in the seaside diner could have predicted. Sophia Reyes, 28, moved through the diner with a tired grace, her white shirt and red vest coat crisp despite the long hours. Her soft blonde curls bounced slightly as she poured coffee, her black pants swishing softly against the checkered floor. She'd been up since dawn, her mind heavy with worry for her 5-year-old son, Luca, who was at home with a babysitter. Luca's heart condition drained their savings, each medical bill a reminder of the husband she'd lost to a fishing accident 3 years ago. The sea had taken so much, but Sophia kept moving, her smile warm for customers even as her own heart ached. She'd once dreamed of being an artist, sketching waves and skies, but life had buried those hopes under endless shifts and hospital visits. The diner was quiet that rainy night, the kind of quiet where the clink of a spoon felt loud. Regulars hunched over their plates, talking about fishing hauls or the storm rolling in. At a corner booth, a stranger sat alone, his ripped suit clinging to him, soaked from the downpour. He was maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a scruffy jaw, sipping black coffee and sketching on napkins. His pencil moved fast, tracing swirling patterns, spirals and lines that looked like ancient maps or coded messages. He muttered to himself, words like forgotten keys and buried signals, slipping out, too soft to bother anyone. Sophia noticed him when she refilled his cup. His sketches caught her eye, not just scribbles, but something alive, like the ocean currents her husband used to draw. She didn't stare long, there were tables to clear. The stranger kept to himself, ordering only coffee and a slice of pie, paying with crumpled bills. He didn't smile or chat, but he wasn't rude either, just lost in his own world, his fingers stained with pencil lead. Sophia felt a pang watching him. He reminded her of herself years ago, when she'd sit up late sketching, dreaming of a life where art could pay the bills. Now, her hands were more used to carrying trays than holding pencils. Near midday, the diner's rhythm broke. Sophia's boss, Carl, a wiry man with a permanent scowl, hovered near the counter, eyeing the stranger. Carl was the kind who saw trouble in anything unusual, and those napkins covered in strange symbols set him off. "Looks like he's planning something," Carl muttered to Sophia, wiping his hands on a rag. "Break-in maybe or worse. This town's too small for weirdos like that." Sophia frowned, glancing at the stranger, who was still sketching, unaware. "He's just drawing, Carl. Paid for his food. Let him be." Carl wasn't having it. He slipped into the back and called the police, his voice low but sharp. Sophia's stomach twisted. She didn't know the man, but she knew what it felt like to be judged for being different. She'd felt it when people whispered about her raising Luca alone, or when she tried selling her sketches at a local fair, only to hear they were too wild for buyers. She kept working, wiping tables, but her eyes flicked to the stranger, who was now tracing a new pattern, something like a wave curling into a star. 2 officers arrived not long after, their boots squeaking on the wet floor. They weren't loud or aggressive, but their presence filled the diner like a storm cloud. The taller one, Officer Daniels, had a clipboard. The other, Officer Hayes, kept a hand near his belt. They approached the stranger's booth, their voices calm but firm. "Sir, we need to talk. Mind showing us what you're working on?" Daniels said, nodding at the pile of napkins. The stranger looked up, blinking, like he'd just noticed them. "Just drawings," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "Ideas. Nothing more." Hayes picked up a napkin, squinting at the swirling lines. "Ideas, huh? Looks like some kind of code. You planning something in our town?" The stranger shook his head, confused. No. It's patterns. Signals from the earth. Old ones." His words didn't help. Daniels flipped through more napkins, his brow furrowing. "Signals? You're gonna need to explain better than that, or you're coming with us." The diner went still. Customers watched, forks paused mid-bite. Sophia, clearing a table nearby, felt her chest tighten. She saw the stranger's hands tremble slightly, not from fear but from frustration, like he couldn't find the words to make them understand. She knew that feeling, trying to explain something you see so clearly, but others don't. Her husband's drawings used to get the same looks, dismissed as just doodles, when they were really maps of the sea's heart. She set down her tray and stepped closer, her voice soft but clear. Those aren't threats. They're just art or maybe ideas, like he said. He's been here hours, paid for his coffee, his pie. He's not hurting anyone. The officers turned, surprised. Daniels raised an eyebrow. Art? Miss, this looks like trouble to us. Don't play hero, stick to serving pie. Hayes chuckled, a low sound that stung like salt in a cut. The other customers shifted, some nodding with the officers, others looking away. Sophia's face burned, but she didn't step back. Her life had taught her to stand firm, even when her knees shook. Luca's hospital bills, the long nights alone, she'd faced worse than a couple of smirking cops. The stranger's eyes met hers, sharp and searching, like he was seeing her for the first time. He didn't speak, but something in his gaze shifted, like a spark catching fire. Sophia held her ground, her soft blonde curls falling over one shoulder, her red vest coat catching the dim diner light. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, her quiet stand for a stranger, was about to turn her world upside down. The diner's air felt thick, the hum of rain outside mixing with the low murmurs of customers watching the scene unfold. Sophia stood near the stranger's booth, her heart pounding but her voice steady from years of holding herself together for Luca. Officer Daniels flipped another napkin, his eyes narrowing at the swirling patterns, while Officer Hayes leaned closer to the stranger, his tone sharp. You got ID? A name? Or are we taking this downtown? The stranger's hands stilled on the table, his gaze flickering between the officers and Sophia, who hadn't backed down despite their laughter. I'm not hiding, the stranger said, his voice calm but edged with exhaustion. My name's Alexander. I've got no trouble to cause. He reached into his torn suit jacket, moving slowly, and pulled out a worn leather wallet. Daniels took it, flipping it open, but his frown deepened. No last name? No address? This doesn't help your case, buddy. Hayes smirked, tossing a napkin back onto the pile. Looks like a drifter with a pencil fetish. Those signals you're talking about better start making sense or you're out of here. Sophia's hands tightened on the edge of her tray. She could see Alexander's shoulders tense, his eyes darting like he was trying to piece together how to explain something too big for words. The napkins spread across the table weren't just scribbles. They had a rhythm, like waves or currents, precise in a way that felt purposeful. To her, they weren't threatening. They were beautiful, like the art she used to dream of making. She stepped closer, ignoring Carl's glare from behind the counter. He's not doing anything wrong, she said, her voice firmer now. You're scaring him for no reason. He's just drawing. You've got no proof he's a threat. Hayes turned, his chuckle louder this time, like she'd told a joke. Proof? Sweetheart, these look like plans for something shady. You don't get to decide what's safe, you pour coffee. Daniels nodded, his tone softer but just as dismissive. Miss, we appreciate the heart, but step back. This isn't your fight. The words stung, slicing into the quiet strength Sophia had built over years of late-night worries and hospital waiting rooms. She felt the eyes of the diner on her, some curious, some judging, but she didn't move. Luca's face flashed in her mind, his small hand in hers during his last checkup, and she thought of how she'd promised to always stand up for what was right, no matter how small it seemed. Alexander's gaze locked on her again, sharper now, like he was seeing something he'd missed before. He didn't smile, but there was a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, a spark that hadn't been there when he'd sat alone with his coffee. The officers didn't notice. They were too busy stacking his napkins, muttering about weird codes, and taking him in for questioning. Carl, still hovering near the counter, nodded approvingly, his arms crossed. Told you, Sophia. Should have stayed out of it, he said under his breath, loud enough for her to hear. Then Alexander moved. Not fast, not loud, but deliberate. He reached into his pocket, not the wallet this time, but deeper, pulling out a small, sleek device that didn't look like any phone Sophia had ever seen. It was smooth, metallic, with a faint blue glow pulsing along its edges. He tapped it once, and it hummed softly, like a machine waking up. The officers froze, their hands hovering over the napkins. "What's that?" Hayes demanded, his voice tight. Alexander didn't look at him. He spoke into the device, his words clear and steady. "Activate retrieval. Gulfstream to these coordinates. 2 aboard with artifact protocol." The diner went silent. Even the rain seemed to hush. Sophia's breath caught, her eyes darting from the device to Alexander's face. He wasn't frantic or scared anymore. He was focused, like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Outside, a low rumble grew, not thunder but something mechanical, deep and powerful. The windows rattled faintly, and heads turned toward the diner's glass front. Spotlights cut through the misty rain, slicing across the parking lot. Customers gasped, some standing to peer outside. Sophia followed their gaze, her heart racing as she saw a sleek, black jet descending onto what everyone thought was just an old gravel lot behind the diner. The ground seemed to shift, revealing a smooth, hidden strip, a landing pad no one in town had ever mentioned. "What the hell?" Hayes muttered, stepping back. Daniels gripped his clipboard tighter, his eyes wide. "That's no gravel lot," he said, almost to himself. The jet's engines whined down, and its door opened, a faint glow spilling out into the rain. Alexander stood, gathering his napkins carefully, like they were worth more than gold. He looked at Sophia, his voice low but clear. "You didn't have to speak for me. But you did. Thank you." He paused, then added, "I'm not what they think. Come with me and I'll show you." Sophia blinked, her mind spinning. The officers were too stunned to stop him as he stepped toward the door, his device still glowing faintly in his hand. Carl shouted from the counter, "Sophia, don't you dare. You've got a shift to finish." But his voice felt far away, drowned out by the rumble of the jet and the pounding of her own pulse. She thought of Luca, waiting at home, his heart monitor beeping softly in the night. She thought of the sketches, the way they'd stirred something in her she hadn't felt in years. And she thought of Alexander's eyes, not pleading but inviting, like he saw something in her worth trusting. The officers snapped out of their shock, Hayes grabbing Alexander's arm. "You're not going anywhere until we—" But Alexander didn't flinch. He tapped the device again, and a sharp beep cut through the air, making Hayes step back. "You don't want to do that," Alexander said, not threatening but certain. "Check my ID again. You'll see." Daniels hesitated, then looked at the wallet still in his hand. His face paled as he read something, whispering to Hayes, who swore under his breath. Whatever was in that wallet had shifted the air in the room. Sophia's hands trembled, but her feet moved before her mind caught up. She untied her apron, letting it fall to the floor, her red vest coat still bright under the diner's lights. "I'm coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper but steady enough to carry. Alexander nodded, a small, real smile breaking through his guarded expression. The officers didn't stop her, their eyes still fixed on the jet outside, its lights casting long shadows through the rain. As they stepped into the storm, the diner's warmth faded behind them. Sophia's curls clung to her face, wet from the rain, but she didn't care. The jet's door waited, open like a promise, and Alexander gestured for her to go first. She took a breath, thinking of Luca, of the life she'd been stuck in, and of the strange beauty in those napkins that had made her feel alive again. She stepped forward, not knowing where this would lead, but feeling, for the first time in years, like she was choosing something for herself. The jet's interior enveloped Sophia in warmth, a stark contrast to the cold Oregon rain soaking her white shirt and red vest coat. Her damp blonde curls stuck to her neck, her black pants heavy with water, but her mind was elsewhere, on Luca, safe with the babysitter but never far from her thoughts. She sat across from Alexander, who carefully tucked his napkins into a sleek case, his torn suit still dripping onto the plush floor. The jet's door sealed with a soft hiss, and the engines hummed, lifting them into the stormy sky. Sophia's heart pounded, not just from the leap into the unknown, but from leaving her son, even for a few hours. She gripped the armrest, whispering to herself that she'd be back soon, Luca's small face her anchor. Alexander leaned forward, his sharp eyes softer now, carrying a weight that matched her own. I'm Alexander Hale, he said, the name landing like a stone in still water. Sophia's breath caught. She'd heard of him, years ago, a billionaire inventor who'd vanished after building tech that mapped signals deep in the earth, turning industries like mining upside down. The news had called him a genius, then a ghost, lost to rumors of chasing myths. You're not a drifter, she said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. He gave a small, tired smile, the first crack in his guarded exterior. Not exactly. I've been searching for something, old signals, forgotten tech. Those sketches you saw, they're pieces of it. He paused, meeting her gaze. You saw them for what they were, not what others feared. That's why I asked you to come. The jet sliced through the clouds, the Oregon coast shrinking below, a blur of misty cliffs and churning waves. Sophia's worry for Luca clung like damp clothes, but Alexander's words stirred something else. A flicker of the artist she used to be, the one who'd sketch waves until dawn before life buried her dreams. She told him about Luca, her voice low at first, then spilling out, his heart condition, the hospital bills that never stopped, the way she'd packed away her pencils after her husband's fishing boat didn't come back. Alexander listened, not interrupting, his eyes steady, like he was seeing her story as clearly as she lived it. My brother, he said when she paused, had a heart problem too. Didn't make it past 10. My family thought my work was a way to avoid grieving him, called it chasing ghosts. His voice was raw, like the words had been locked away for years. Sophia saw her own loss mirrored in his face, a shared ache that didn't need explaining. The flight was short, landing on a small Pacific island where the rain had cleared, stars breaking through the dark. The island wasn't a vacation spot. It was a hidden lab, carved into cliffs that shimmered faintly with strange minerals, like the earth itself was glowing. Alexander led her inside, his steps sure, like he'd built every inch of this place. The lab was alive with humming machines, screens flickering with data, and a table where his napkins lay under soft lights. This is where I work, he said, spreading the sketches out. These patterns, they're signals from ancient systems, buried under the ocean. They could find resources, clean energy, minerals, to save towns like yours from fading away. Sophia traced a sketch, its swirling lines pulling at her, so like the ocean currents her husband used to draw. The patterns weren't random. They had a rhythm, a purpose, like art with a pulse. Her fingers lingered, and for a moment, she forgot the weight of Luca's needs. Why me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm just a waitress, Alexander. I don't know tech. He shook his head, his expression firm. You're not just anything. You saw beauty where others saw danger. That's not common. Your eye, your artist's eye, it could make this real for people, not just numbers on a screen. He pointed to a display, cold and technical, filled with graphs and codes. These signals need to be seen, felt. You could help me do that. Sophia's chest tightened. She hadn't drawn in years, not since Luca's diagnosis turned her life into a cycle of shifts and hospital rooms. But here, in this strange lab, the idea of creating again felt like a lifeline, even if her worry for Luca tugged her back. They moved to a small break room, coffee brewing as the clock ticked down her visit. Sophia's words came faster now, spilling over the edge, Luca's laugh, how he drew fish despite never seeing the ocean up close, the way his small hand felt in hers during doctor visits. Alexander listened, his face still but his eyes alive, like he was piecing her together the way he did his signals. After my brother died, he said, stirring his coffee, I threw myself into this, finding things the world forgot. My family thought I was running, but I was looking for answers. Nobody believed in me, not like you did back there. His voice caught, and Sophia felt it, the loneliness of carrying something no one else could see. She told him about her husband's sketches, how they'd mapped the sea's heart, and how she'd stopped drawing when he was gone. Alexander nodded, like he understood the cost of letting go. He didn't let the moment linger. He tapped his device, making calls as they walked the lab's halls, screens glowing with maps and signals. I'll cover Luca's surgery, he said, his tone matter-of-fact, like it was already done. Best doctors, all costs handled. No strings. Sophia's breath hitched, her eyes stinging. You don't have to, she started, but he cut her off. It's not a favor. It's what's right. And there's something else. He pulled a small prototype from a case, a heart monitor shaped like a toy fish, compact and smooth, designed for a child to carry without feeling broken. For Luca, he said. So he can be a kid, not a patient. Sophia held it, her fingers tracing its curves, tears spilling over. She saw Luca's smile in her mind, his small hands clutching this magic fish, and her throat closed with gratitude. Alexander handed her a sketchpad, its weight familiar yet foreign. Try it, he said. Draw what you see in those signals. Sophia hesitated, her hands shaking, but she took the pencil. She sketched a wave, then another, blending Alexander's patterns into something fluid, alive, like the ocean breathing. The lines came easily, her old instincts waking up, and for the first time in years she felt like herself, not just a mom or a waitress, but Sophia, the artist. Alexander watched, his face lighting up. That's it, he said, pointing to her sketch. That's what I need, something human, something real. They worked for an hour, her drawings softening his tech into designs that felt like stories, not just data. She sketched a map of signals that looked like waves curling into stars, and Alexander nodded, his own pencil moving, adding notes to her work. Her worry for Luca broke through, though like a wave she couldn't outrun. I need to get home, she said, her voice firm, the sketchpad still in her hands. Alexander didn't hesitate. For hours, like I said. Let's go. He gathered his napkins, tucking the device into his pocket, and led her back to the jet. The ride back was quieter, the engine's hum a steady pulse. Sophia clutched the sketchpad, her mind buzzing with lines and patterns, but her heart pulling toward Luca. Alexander worked on his device, but he glanced at her, his voice low. You stood up for me in that diner. Nobody's done that in years. Thank you. Sophia swallowed, her throat tight. You're helping my son. That's more than I can ever repay. He shook his head. It's not about repaying. It's about building something, together. He handed her a card with a number. For the job, call when you're ready to draw more. The jet landed on the hidden strip behind the diner, the rain still falling, softer now. Sophia stepped out, her curls wet again, her red vest coat catching the jet's lights. 4 hours had passed, but it felt like a lifetime, her hands alive with the memory of sketching, her heart lighter despite Luca's needs. Alexander stood at the jet's door, his torn suit silhouetted against the glow. I'll be in touch about Luca, he said. And the work. She nodded, clutching the card, and turned toward home, the sketchpad under her arm like a promise. At home, Luca was asleep, his small chest rising steadily, his fish drawings scattered on the table. Sophia kissed his forehead, her tears falling silently. She sat by his bed, sketching a new wave in the dim light, her hands moving with a purpose she'd thought was gone. Within days, Alexander's team called, arranging Luca's surgery, top doctors, every detail covered, just as he'd promised. The toy fish monitor arrived soon after, Luca giggling as he held it, calling it his magic fish. Sophia mailed her first sketches to Alexander, her designs turning his signals into art that could speak to struggling towns. Their calls became regular, his voice steady on the line, her ideas blending with his, not as partners in a grand adventure, but as two people who'd seen each other's truths. Sophia's life didn't change overnight. The diner shifts dragged on, bills still came, but Luca was stronger, his laughter brighter. She drew at night, her sketches piling up, each one a step toward something new. Alexander's tech was taking shape, her designs making it more than machines. Something human, something that could heal places like her town. They didn't meet again, not yet, but their shared work felt like a bridge, built from one moment of trust in a rainy diner. Sophia looked at Luca's drawings, then at her own, and saw the same lines, waves, fish, signals of hope. One act of seeing beauty in the strange had given her back her art, her son's future, and a path she hadn't dared imagine, proving that even a few hours could shift the tides of a life. That was today's story. If it moved you, hit that like button, share it with a friend who appreciates a powerful twist, and subscribe for more cinematic tales that linger long after the screen fades. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.